Before Bob Marley, before Burning Spear, there was a voice that didn't just sing reggae. It introduced it to the world. He sang of struggle, but with a smile. His rebellion came with rhythm, seedling the birth of a melody. He was born James Chambers on April 1, 1948, in Somerton District, a rural village in St. James, Jamaica. Like many reggae legends, Jimmy Cliff came from modest beginnings. No electricity, no running water, but what he had was voice. Even as a child, villagers said his singing could stop goats mid-step. He built his first guitar from a sardine can, a piece of wood, and fishing line. Because music wasn't a hobby, it was a way out. Music was the only road I could walk to escape poverty. Headphone a star in Kingston. At age 14, Jimmy moved to Kingston to chase his dream. He performed at talent shows, slept in recording studios, and begged producers for a chance. Eventually, Leslie Kong, a local producer, heard him sing. He signed Jimmy on the spot, and produced his first hit, Hurricane Hattie. It wasn't just a local hit, it echoed across the island. Soon followed, King of Kings, One-Eyed Jacks, Miss Jamaica. Jimmy Cliff wasn't just another singer. He had something rare, international appeal. Globe Jamaica meets the world. By the early 1960s, Jamaica was on the verge of independence, and Jimmy Cliff became one of its first cultural ambassadors. In 1964, he performed at the World's Fair in New York, representing Jamaica alongside Byron Lee and Prince Buster. The crowd didn't understand patois, but they understood emotion. His voice was clean, powerful, and filled with something universal, hope. Film frames The Harder They Come. In 1972, everything changed. Jimmy Cliff starred in a low-budget Jamaican film called The Harder They Come. He played Ivan Martin, a country boy who moves to Kingston to become a star, and ends up an outlaw. The film was raw, real, revolutionary. For the first time, the world saw Jamaican life, unfiltered. And at its center, Jimmy Cliff's voice. The soundtrack became an instant classic. You can get it if you really want. Sitting in limbo, many rivers to cross. Suddenly, reggae wasn't just Jamaican. It was global. He didn't just star in the movie. He became the sound of resistance. Rolling Stone magazine musical note the soul of struggle. Unlike other artists, Jimmy didn't rely on militancy or mysticism. His power was in positivity. His rebellion came with smiling wisdom. He wrote songs for the people who hoped, not just those who fought. Many Rivers to Cross was about spiritual wandering. You Can Get It was about perseverance. People connected, across borders, across cultures. By the mid-70s, Jimmy Cliff was touring Europe, charting in the US, singing in stadiums across Africa, recording songs in multiple languages. He had become the first reggae superstar, even before Marley reached his peak. DVD International Roots. Jimmy signed with Island Records, worked with legendary producer Chris Blackwell, and brought together ska, reggae, soul, and even gospel in his albums. He wasn't afraid to blend styles. Because for him, reggae was more than a sound. It was a vessel. Reggae can carry any message, any story, any struggle. Jimmy Cliff. He gave reggae its wings. But in the sky, he found himself alone. Jimmy Cliff sang hope into hopelessness, and the world crowned him a rebel with a melody. Trophy international acclaim. By the late 1970s, Jimmy Cliff was a household name far beyond Jamaica. His songs had been covered by major international artists. He performed at Montreux Jazz Festival, Reggae Sunsplash, and Global Peace concerts. In 1985, he received the Grammy Award for Best Reggae Album for Cliffhanger. It was official. Jimmy wasn't just a pioneer, he was a world-class artist. Globe a messenger, not just a musician. What set Jimmy Cliff apart wasn't just his sound, it was his message. He sang about apartheid in South Africa, Bongo Man, Caribbean identity and dignity, rootswoman, personal resilience, trapped, global injustice and peace officer. Unlike the raw militancy of some contemporaries, Jimmy's activism came through melody, storytelling, and grace. You can educate more people with harmony than with a gun. Jimmy Cliff compassed faith, philosophy, and identity. Jimmy's spirituality didn't follow a single path. He embraced Islam, Christianity, and Rastafari, and blended his beliefs into a universal message of unity and peace. His songs often felt like hymns for the lost, reaching across boundaries of religion, class, and race. I'm not here to divide. I'm here to show that all rivers lead to the same ocean. This made him a unique figure, hard to label, but easy to believe. TV beyond music, cultural force. In the 1980s and 90s, Jimmy expanded his influence beyond music. He wrote essays on culture and identity, participated in UNESCO initiatives, acted in international films, collaborated with artists from Africa, Latin America, and Europe. He recorded Hakuna Matata in Swahili and partnered with Nelson Mandela's ANC movement through musical outreach. He wasn't just singing anymore, he was building cultural bridges. Musical notes the sound of adaptation. As dancehall and digital reggae took over, Jimmy didn't fade away. He collaborated with Wyclef Jean, Joe Strummer, The Clash, Annie Lennox, Beres Hammond. He experimented with funk, pop, and even electronic elements. But his core message remained: don't lose yourself while evolving. Each decade brought a new sound, but Jimmy Cliff's soul stayed intact. Dove the cost of legacy. Behind the awards and global admiration, Jimmy often spoke of loneliness. He was proud, but sometimes forgotten in reggae circles, overshadowed by the Marley mythology. He once said, "Sometimes I feel like I helped build the house, but wasn't invited to live in it." Still, he kept performing, kept creating, kept loving the craft, because for Jimmy, music was never about fame. It was about freedom. He didn't need to stay on top. He chose to rise from within. While others chased hits, Jimmy Cliff chased harmony, within himself and across the world. Repeat button: a quiet comeback. In the early 2000s, while many of his peers had retired, Jimmy Cliff quietly returned to the studio. No major label deal, no marketing storm, just purpose. He began working with younger producers. He re-recorded classics. He toured in smaller, more intimate venues, choosing connection over fame. "I never left music, I just went deeper into it." Music Score Rebirth, 2012. In 2012, he released the album, Rebirth, produced by Tim Armstrong of the punk band Rancid. It was a bold move, a roots reggae album, with the energy of rebellion and the wisdom of age. Tracks like One More, Children's Bread, World Upside Down, proved Jimmy Cliff was not a relic. He was relevant. Rebirth won Best Reggae Album at the Grammys and was hailed as one of the best reggae records of the decade. Herb Simplicity as Revolution. At a time when the world was speeding up, Jimmy Cliff slowed down. He spoke in interviews about farming, meditation, teaching young musicians, writing poetry and spiritual songs. He turned away from bright stages and focused more on quiet impact. "My biggest work now is to live what I've been singing all along." He became not just a legend, but a kind of cultural sage. Globe legacy without borders. Jimmy's influence spread far beyond reggae. Bruce Springsteen covered Trapped. Cher recorded Many Rivers to Cross. Elvis Costello, Annie Lennox, and Joe Cocker all cited him as inspiration. In Africa, his music is considered part of the anti-colonial soundtrack. In Latin America, his songs are used in classrooms to teach English. In Europe, he's a festival headliner and a reggae elder statesman. He's the artist who brought reggae to people who didn't know what reggae was. David Rodigan's sports medal recognition at home. For years, Jimmy Cliff's global acclaim was larger than his local praise. But that changed. In 2003, he was awarded the Order of Merit, Jamaica's highest cultural honor. A street in Montego Bay was renamed in his honor. Statues were erected, his lyrics added to Jamaican school curriculums. Finally, the island that birthed him gave him the flowers he had always deserved. He made Jamaica known to the world before tourism ever did. Jamaican Prime Minister, man in lotus position, medium skin tone, the elder of a movement. By the 2020s, Jimmy Cliff had stepped into a new role, a teacher, a watcher, a keeper of truth. He still performed, still recorded, but mostly, he shared stories, insights, spirit. He mentored artists privately, appeared at cultural forums, gave talks about music as meditation, and lyrics as resistance. He said in an interview, "If my songs live beyond me, that's enough. I don't need statues, I just need silence after the last note." Some voices fade with time. His only gets clearer. Jimmy Cliff didn't just carry reggae, he carried spirit, message, and memory. Musical note still singing. Even in his 70s, Jimmy Cliff continued to do what he loved most, perform. His voice may have aged, but it never lost its soul. Audiences around the world stood in silence as he sang Many Rivers to Cross, a song that sounded even more powerful decades later. He didn't tour as often, didn't release albums every year, but when he did appear, it mattered. His performances were no longer concerts. They were ceremonies. DNA influence that spans generations. Jimmy Cliff's fingerprint is everywhere. Artists like Chronix, Protégé, and Coffee cite him as a pillar. His melodies inspired genres from Afrobeat to Latin reggae. His lyrics are sampled in hip-hop, pop, and soul. Even artists outside the Caribbean refer to him as the man who made reggae feel human. From high school choirs to global film soundtracks, Jimmy Cliff's music lives, not in charts but in hearts. Books reggae's first global storyteller. Many reggae artists told Jamaica's story, but Jimmy told the world's story through Jamaican sound. He sang about inner struggle, about the immigrant experience, about peace, redemption, and the search for meaning. He turned personal emotion into global resonance. He was reggae's first translator, the one who carried the message beyond borders. Trophy Immortal Recognition. In his lifetime, Jimmy Cliff received the Order of Merit, Jamaica's highest honor, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, 2010 Grammy Awards, and Lifetime Achievement tributes. But none of those compared to his greatest achievement. He never lost himself. Through decades of changing trends, Jimmy remained authentic, grounded, and gracious. I didn't follow the world. I followed the sound inside me. Dove the eternal melody. Now in his later years, Jimmy Cliff doesn't sing for fame or applause. He sings because the melody still moves him. And it moves us too. Because every time we hear, you can get it if you really want. Sitting in limbo, the harder they come, we don't just hear music. We hear a man's journey, a nation's rise, and a world trying to find itself through song. Studio microphone final words. Some artists become legends when they die. Jimmy Cliff became one while still alive, because he never stopped being real.